There is a small window of time that passes quietly each night, often unnoticed, often underestimated, and yet filled with more influence than most realize. It is not long, not demanding, not overwhelming, just 40 minutes. A brief space between the noise of the day and the silence of sleep. But within those 40 minutes lies a powerful opportunity, a turning point that can shape the entire course of the night that follows. Most people move into the night without awareness, carrying everything with them: the pressure, the thoughts, the unfinished conversations, the lingering stress. There is no separation, no preparation, no intention. The day simply blends into the night, and the mind continues running without direction. As a result, rest becomes shallow, thoughts become scattered, and the night feels more like an extension of exhaustion than a place of renewal. But those 40 minutes offer something different. They provide a pause, a deliberate break from everything that has been building throughout the day, not to escape, but to reset, not to ignore, but to realign. It is in this window that control can be re-established, where the direction of the night is no longer left to chance, but is intentionally decided. This is not about adding pressure or creating another obligation. It is about recognizing value in what seems small, because what appears insignificant often carries the greatest impact when it is used with awareness. 40 minutes may not seem like much in the span of an entire day, but when positioned correctly, it becomes the foundation for everything that follows. The night is not empty. It is not passive. It is not simply a time when nothing happens. It is a space where the mind processes, where the body restores, and where the body restores, and where the body restores, and where the unseen continues to move. What enters that space matters. What is carried into those hours influences how deeply rest is experienced and how fully strength is restored. Without preparation, the night becomes open to whatever remains unresolved. Thoughts continue where they left off. Emotions carry over without release. Tension stays present instead of fading away. And even in sleep, there is no true stillness, only a continuation of what was never addressed. But when those 40 minutes are used with intention, everything begins to shift. The transition from day to night becomes defined, clear, and purposeful. Instead of drifting into rest, there is a conscious movement into it. There is a conscious movement into it. Instead of carrying everything forward, there is a decision about what stays and what is left behind. This is where the power lies, not in the length of time, but in the use of it. Because time alone does not create change, it is what is done within that time that determines its impact. And these 40 minutes, when used with clarity, become a space where everything can be aligned before rest begins. They become a boundary that separates the noise from the stillness, A moment where the mind can slow down, where distractions can be removed, and where focus can return. It is not forced or rushed. It is intentional and steady. And once that shift begins, the entire night responds differently. Rest becomes deeper. Thoughts become quieter. The body releases tension more easily. What once felt heavy begins to feel lighter, not because the day was perfect, but because the transition was intentional. This is the difference most people miss. They focus on the hours of sleep, but overlook the moments that prepare for it. They try to fix rest without addressing what leads into it. But everything that happens during the night is influenced by what is established before it begins. These 40 minutes are not just time, they are preparation, alignment, and authority combined into a single moment. A moment where everything can be redirected, restructured, and reset. And once this becomes understood, it changes the way the night is approached completely. No longer as something passive, but as something that can be shaped, guided, and secured. Because within those 40 minutes lies the power to turn an ordinary night into a night of deep restoration, clarity, and complete renewal. Before the night can be shaped with clarity and intention, there must first be a clear separation from everything that came before it. The day carries weight, seen and unseen, acknowledged and unrecognized. Thoughts accumulate, conversations leave impressions, responsibilities create pressure, and emotions build layer upon layer. Even when the day appears to end, its residue often remains, quietly following into the night if it is not intentionally released. These 40 minutes become the dividing line, a deliberate space where the transition from activity to stillness is no longer automatic, but intentional. Without this separation, the mind continues operating as if the day never ended. It replays moments, revisits conversations, and reprocesses unfinished thoughts. The body may slow down, but the mind remains active, holding on to everything it has not yet let go. This is why separation is necessary, not as an escape, but as a reset. It is the recognition that what has already happened does not need to define what comes next. The events of the day, whether positive or negative, do not need to carry equal influence into the night. There is a choice to release, a choice to step away from the accumulation of mental and emotional noise. At first, this noise may not even be obvious. It can exist quietly in the background, subtle tension, lingering thoughts, a sense of restlessness that cannot easily be explained. But when attention is given to it, its presence becomes clear. It is the leftover weight of everything that was never fully resolved or released. These 40 minutes create the opportunity to confront that noise without pressure. Not to solve everything, not to force answers, but to acknowledge what is present and allow it to lose its hold. Thoughts that once felt urgent begin to slow down. Emotions that once felt intense begin to soften. The constant movement of the mind begins to settle. This process is not about suppression. It is not about ignoring or pushing things away. It is about recognition followed by release. Understanding that not every thought needs to continue, not every concern needs to be carried forward, and not every pressure needs to remain active. As this awareness grows, a natural stillness begins to take shape. The mind no longer races from one thought to another. Instead, it begins to pause. Space opens up between thoughts. Space opens up between thoughts. The intensity of the day begins to fade, replaced by a quiet sense of distance from everything that once felt immediate. This separation also restores control. Without it, the mind operates on momentum, continuing whatever patterns were active during the day. But with it, that momentum is interrupted. There is a moment to choose what continues and what stops. A moment to decide what deserves attention and what does not. In this space, distractions begin to lose their power. The urge to stay mentally engaged with everything starts to weaken. There is less need to revisit, less need to analyze, less need to hold on to what has already passed. The mind begins to accept stillness instead of resisting it. And as this happens, as the atmosphere begins to change, what once felt heavy becomes lighter. What once felt crowded becomes clear. The transition from day to night becomes smooth instead of abrupt. This is where true preparation begins. Because before anything can be established for the night, there must be space for it to exist. And that space is created through separation from noise, from pressure, from everything that no longer needs to remain active. The importance of this moment cannot be overstated. Without separation, the night carries the full weight of the day. But with it, the night becomes something new, something untouched, something prepared, something ready to be shaped with intention. And within this quiet separation, there is clarity, a clarity that does not come from force, but from release. A clarity that allows everything that follows to be established on a clean and steady foundation. Because only when the noise fades can the stillness truly begin. Once the noise of the day has been separated and the mind begins to settle into stillness, a new opportunity emerges. the opportunity to establish authority over the night. This is where the shift becomes intentional, where the night is no longer something that unfolds randomly, but something that is directed with clarity and purpose. Without this step, the night remains undefined. And what is undefined is often shaped by whatever tries to fill the space. Lingering thoughts, subtle anxieties, unnoticed tension. But when authority is established, that uncertainty disappears. That uncertainty disappears. There is no longer a question of what the night will become, because its direction has already been decided. Authority begins with recognition, recognizing that the night is not outside of control, not separate from influence, and not immune to intention. It is a space that responds to what is set in place before it fully begins. Just as the day is set, shaped by decisions, the night is shaped by what is declared and established within these moments. This is not about force or struggle. It is not about trying to control every detail or eliminate every possibility of disturbance. It is about setting clear boundaries, deciding what will be allowed and what will not. It is about drawing a line that defines the atmosphere of the night before anything else can attempt to shape it. In this moment, nothing is left vague. In this moment, nothing is left vague. There is clarity about what belongs: peace, rest, stability, restoration. And there is clarity about what does not belong: fear, disturbance, confusion, or anything that disrupts the purpose of the night. This distinction alone carries power because it removes uncertainty and replaces it with direction. Authority also removes passivity. Instead of waiting to see how the night unfolds, there is a decision about how it will unfold. Instead of reacting to what might come, there is a proactive alignment with what should remain. This changes the entire dynamic. The night is no longer something to be experienced without control. It becomes something that responds to what has been established. There is also a firmness in this step, not rigid but steady. Once authority is set, it does not waver. It does not change based on passing thoughts or shifting emotions. It remains consistent, holding the structure that has been put in place. This consistency is what strengthens it, making it reliable and effective. As authority is established, there is a noticeable shift in the atmosphere. The mind feels more grounded. The sense of uncertainty begins to disappear. There is a quiet confidence that replaces the need to question or anticipate. It becomes clear that the night is no longer open to anything. It is aligned with what has already been decided. This step also creates protection, not in a reactive way, but in a preemptive way. By defining the boundaries early, there is less room for disturbance to even begin. What does not belong is already restricted before it can take form. What is not aligned is already denied access before it can influence anything. This is the power of establishing authority early. It does not wait for problems to appear. It prevents them from taking root. It does not react to disruption. It removes the possibility of disruption before it begins. And as this becomes consistent, the difference becomes undeniable. Nights feel more stable, more peaceful, more controlled. Rest becomes deeper, not because the environment has changed, but because the authority within it has been established. This is where the night transforms from something passive into something intentional, from something uncertain into something secured, from something that simply happens into something that is clearly directed. Because once authority is set, everything that follows aligns with it. Once authority has been firmly established and the boundaries of the night are clearly set, the next step is not simply to maintain restriction, but to intentionally release what belongs within that space. Because true control is not only about what is kept out, but also about what is allowed in. And what fills the night determines the depth of rest, the quality of renewal, and the strength that is carried into the next day. This is where the atmosphere begins to shift from guarded to filled. The space that was cleared and protected is no longer empty. It becomes occupied with peace, strength, and restoration. not in fragments, not in uncertainty, but in fullness. Every part of the mind and body begins to align with what is being released into it. Peace is the first to take its place, not a surface level calm, but a deep and steady stillness that settles beneath every thought. It quiets what once felt restless. It softens what once felt tense. It removes the urgency from the mind and replaces it with a sense of stability that does not fluctuate. This peace does not come and go. It establishes itself as a constant presence. As peace settles, strength begins to rise. The exhaustion carried from the day does not remain dominant. Instead, it is gradually replaced with a quiet rebuilding, a restoration that begins even before sleep fully takes over. The body responds to this shift, releasing tension that it no longer needs to hold. The mind follows, letting go of the effort it has been sustaining for hours. This strength is not forced. It does not require effort to maintain. It flows naturally as what once drained energy is no longer present. Without the interference of stress or distraction, restoration begins to happen automatically. What was depleted starts to refill. What felt weak begins to stabilize. Clarity also takes its place in this process. The confusion that once lingered in the background begins to fade. Thoughts that once overlapped and competed for attention begin to separate and settle. There is no longer a need to process everything at once. Instead, the mind becomes ordered, quiet, and clear. This clarity creates a sense of ease. There is no pressure to figure everything out, no urgency to resolve every detail. The mind accepts stillness as enough, and within that stillness, everything begins to align without force. What makes this step powerful is that it begins before sleep, not during it. The process of restoration is already in motion. The body does not wait until deep sleep to recover. It begins responding the moment the atmosphere shifts. The mind does not wait until unconsciousness to quiet. It settles as soon as peace is released. This means that rest is no longer dependent on how quickly sleep comes. Even before sleep fully takes over, there is already a sense of renewal happening. The transition into rest becomes smooth, uninterrupted, and natural. There is also a completeness to this feeling. Nothing is left unaddressed. Where there is tension, there is now calm. Where there was fatigue, there is now rebuilding. Where there was noise, there is now silence. Every space that was once occupied by pressure is now occupied by something that restores. And because this is done with intention, it remains steady. It is not easily disrupted. It is not easily replaced. Once peace, strength, and clarity are established, they hold their place throughout the night. This transforms the entire experience of rest. It is no longer just physical recovery, it becomes full restoration. The kind that reaches every level, mental, emotional, and physical, without resistance. And as this becomes consistent, nights begin to feel different. Not unpredictable, not restless, but stable, calm, and deeply renewing. The difference is not in the length of sleep, but in the quality of what fills it. Because when the night is filled with what belongs, there is no space left for anything else. As peace, strength, and restoration begin to fill the atmosphere, the focus naturally moves to the center of it all, the mind. Because the mind is the gateway through which the entire night is experienced. If it remains unsettled, rest becomes shallow. If it remains active, sleep becomes fragmented. But when it is aligned, everything that follows becomes deeper, smoother, and uninterrupted. The mind has been active all day, processing information, responding to situations, carrying thoughts from one moment to the next without pause. Carrying thoughts from one moment to the next without pause. Even when the body slows down, the mind often continues at the same pace, replaying events, anticipating outcomes, and holding onto details that no longer need attention. Without intention alignment, this active, does not stop. It simply continues into the night. These moments create the opportunity to bring that activity into order, not by force, not by suppression, but by guiding it into stillness. The thoughts that once felt urgent begin to lose their intensity. The need to revisit every detail begins to fade. There is no longer a sense of unfinished urgency pushing the mind to remain active. Alignment begins with allowing the mind to slow down naturally. Instead of jumping from one thought to another, it begins to settle into a steady rhythm. Space appears between thoughts. Silence begins to replace constant movement. This silence is not empty. It is filled with calm awareness, a quiet presence that does not demand attention but holds stability. As this alignment deepens, clarity becomes more consistent. The mind no longer feels scattered or divided. It becomes focused without effort, calm without pressure. There is no confusion pulling in different directions, no competing thoughts creating tension. Everything feels organized, steady, and at ease. This is where anxiety loses its hold. Anxiety depends on movement, rapid thoughts, constant anticipation, and a sense of urgency that keeps the mind from resting. But when the mind is aligned, that movement stops. There is no momentum left for anxiety to operate within. It has no space to grow, no direction to follow, and no foothold to remain. Fear also fades in this alignment. Fear also fades in this alignment, not because it is forced out, but because there is no environment for it to exist. Fear relies on uncertainty and instability. But when the mind is stable, grounded, and clear, fear has nothing to attach itself to. It dissolves naturally as the mind remains steady. This alignment also affects how the body responds. The body follows the mind's condition. When the mind is restless, the body remains tense. When the mind is calm, the body begins to release. Muscles relax, breathing becomes deeper, and the entire system shifts into a state that supports rest instead of resisting it. There is a flow that develops here, a smooth transition from awareness into sleep. No sudden drop, no forced shutdown, no struggle to let go. Sleep becomes a continuation of the calm that has already been established. The mind does not resist it because it is already at peace. This is what creates deep rest. Not just the absence of waking, but the presence of alignment. State where the mind is not carrying unnecessary weight, not processing unnecessary noise, and not holding onto what no longer matters. And within this alignment, there is protection as well. The mind remains steady, even as sleep deepens. There is no sudden return of scattered thoughts, no interruption of peace, no disruption that pulls it out of rest. No interruption of peace, no disruption that pulls it out of rest. Everything continues in the same direction that was established before sleep began. Over time, this becomes natural. The mind begins to expect stillness instead of activity. It becomes familiar with calm instead of chaos. And as this familiarity grows, alignment happens more quickly, more easily, and more consistently. This is the foundation of true rest. This is the foundation of true rest. Not just sleep, but deep, uninterrupted renewal that begins with the mind and flows through every part of the body. Because when the mind is aligned, the night is no longer something to endure. It becomes something that restores completely. As the mind settles into alignment and peace, fully takes its place, there comes a final and crucial step, securing everything that has been established. This is where the process is sealed, where nothing is left open, nothing is left open, nothing is left uncertain, and nothing is left vulnerable to disruption. The night is no longer just prepared, it is firmly secured with confidence. Without this step, even what has been established can feel temporary. There may still be a subtle sense of uncertainty, a quiet question of whether the calm will last or if something might interrupt it. But when the night is secured, that uncertainty disappears completely. There is no doubt left, no hesitation remaining. Everything stands firm. Securing the night is about reinforcement. It is the moment where every boundary that has been set is strengthened, every decision that has been made is confirmed, and every element that has been released is firmly anchored in place. Nothing shifts, nothing weakens, and nothing is left to chance. This creates a deep sense of confidence, not surface level reassurance, but a steady and grounded certainty. There is no need to remain alert, no need to monitor what might happen next. What has been established does not require constant attention. It holds its place on its own. Confidence replaces questioning. Instead of wondering how the night will unfold, there is a clear knowing that it has already been aligned. Instead of anticipating disturbance, there is an expectation of stability. There is an expectation of stability. This shift removes the subtle tension that often lingers even in moments of calm. There is also a sense of completion in this step. Nothing feels unfinished. Nothing feels partially addressed. Every part of the process, from separation to authority to release, comes together and settles into a single unified state. The night is no longer a series of possibilities. It becomes a defined and secured experience. This security extends through every hour that follows. It is not limited to the moment before sleep. It continues consistently throughout the entire night. Every phase of rest, every transition within sleep remains covered by what has been established. There is no gap, no moment where control is lost. Because of this, there is a deep relaxation that becomes possible. The mind does not need to stay partially. The mind does not need to stay partially active. The body does not need to hold any tension. Everything is free to fully let go because there is nothing left to manage, nothing left to protect, and nothing left to question. Even in the deepest stages of sleep, this sense of security remains. There are no sudden interruptions, no return of unrest, no unexpected disturbances breaking through. The stability that was established continues without interruption, carrying through every moment until morning. This is what transforms the night from uncertain to dependable. Instead of hoping for rest, there is assurance of it. Instead of reacting to the night, there is confidence in what has already been set in place. Over time, this confidence becomes familiar. It becomes expected. Each night begins with the same assurance and ends with the same stability. There is no variation in outcome because the foundation remains consistent. And as this becomes a pattern, the entire relationship with rest changes. The night is no longer approached with uncertainty or hesitation. It is approached with clarity, with control, and with complete confidence. Because once the night is secured, it remains that way, steady, protected, and fully aligned with everything that has been established. This is the point where understanding must turn into action, where what has been revealed cannot remain as knowledge alone, but must become a consistent practice. These 40 minutes are not just a concept to admire. They are a routine to be lived, a discipline to be embraced, and a pattern that has the power to reshape every night moving forward. There is no transformation without consistency. A single night of intention can bring a glimpse of change, but repeated alignment is what builds lasting results. What is practiced daily becomes natural. What is repeated consistently becomes effortless. And what is sustained over time becomes a definition. Is a definition. Part of life. These 40 minutes are not a burden. They are an investment. An investment into peace, into clarity, into strength that carries beyond the night and into every moment that follows. They require presence, but they give back far more than they take. They create a foundation that supports not just rest, but the quality of everything that comes after it, Make this a non-negotiable part of the night. Make this a non-negotiable part of the night. Not something done occasionally, not something dependent on mood or circumstance, but something steady and reliable. Let it become the transition that separates the noise of the day from the stillness of the night. Let it be the moment where control is reestablished and alignment is restored. There will be moments where it feels unnecessary, where the day may seem light, where the mind may already feel calm. But consistency is not built on convenience. It is built on commitment. Even in moments where it feels less needed, it continues to strengthen the habit, reinforcing the pattern until it becomes automatic. Over time, the impact becomes undeniable. Nights become deeper. Rest becomes more complete. Mornings begin with clarity instead of heaviness. There is a noticeable shift, not just in how the night feels, but in how the entire day unfolds, as a result of it. Stay with the process. Do not rush it. Do not expect immediate perfection. What matters is consistency, not intensity. Each night builds on the one before it, strengthening what has already been established and deepening what has already begun. Let these 40 minutes become a place of reset, a place of alignment, a place where everything is brought back into order before rest begins. Let them shape the atmosphere, define the direction, and secure the outcome of every night. And as this becomes part of daily life, the difference will no longer be subtle. It will be clear, steady, and undeniable. Call to action. Commit to these 40 minutes starting tonight. Return to them every night without exception. Stay consistent, stay intentional, and allow this practice to transform not just the night, but everything that follows.